Welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It's always good to be in your presence, brother. We got a great show coming up here.
Yeah, it's going to be some interesting information.
Interesting information. Let's recognize our sponsors.
Lee Costle and Crawley, if you need help, they can help you. Also, the Fervent Care Child Care and Christian Academy, Christian Clean, Caring, and Convenient Care, and the Marion County Health Department. Indianapolis Healthy Start Safe Sleep Program saves some lives dealing with infant mortality. And we want to encourage you to go to YouTube, type in WHMB TV 40 in the search field, and subscribe and like us.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Isn't it so dynamic, though, Pastor Jackson, that after almost 3 years, we have every single program we've ever did on YouTube, and you can always refer back to the program that interests you the most. And we hope that you will continue to do that and continue to watch Real People, Real Voices, because it is your program. It's not ours. It's yours. As you see, we bring people from all walks of life here to give information to our community. And
we talk about all kind of topics pertinent to the quality of life of the people who are interviewing us.
And if you stay with us, you're going to hear something here in just a few minutes that will help us all.
Yeah. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we're here to a special edition of Real People, Real Voices, and our topic today is false reporting.
False reporting, and not only false reporting, we're going to be able to talk about the Shortridge High School incident as well.
Yeah.
We'll touch bases on that. Just so much going on in the city that the city needs to know about, and they need to hear it from a different perspective other than the perspective of localized media. But from two brothers who are out in the community doing the work.
Yeah.
And like others as well.
So
what happened? Tell me what happened to you. You had an issue in Lawrence, I believe it was.
Yeah.
The community of Lawrence, or township of Lawrence. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, I was on my way from a church event at 38th and German Church. I pastor a church over there. Mm-hmm. And on my way northbound on German Church Road, and I came up on some work that was being done there in Lawrence.
There was a lot of road work going.
Yeah, it was a wide load, about 3 semis or so in the road, blocking the traffic. And so I stopped along with other motorists behind me, and there was no one there with a sign to indicate whether we were to go or wait or anything. But there was a young lady less than a quarter mile down the road, and she had her hand straight up, so I'm thinking we can go ahead and start going along here. And
so you thought, based on the gestures that she was giving you, that you thought you could?
Yeah. So did other cars behind me.
Okay.
So we just started making our way. But she didn't want me to come. And then there was another lady who was a white female, came running out into the traffic, and she was waving her hands all around. And my windows were down, and she was shouting different things at me. And subsequently, she said, you know, if I had a gun, I would shoot you, which really shocked me that she said that. She was part of the escort team that was out there with the responsibility of controlling traffic.
Because of your possibly misunderstanding of the gesture she made to come forward.
Yeah, and you know, it's unfortunate that she said that to me. If I had a gun, I'd shoot you. And unfortunately in America, that's how people are selling their issues. But she also said, we're going to get your plate and call the police. So I thought that was interesting. So I pulled into the fire station there, right there on German Church Road, and waited for the police to come. And when the police got there, it was very interesting because the officer didn't ask for my license or registration. He said, well, I need you to get out of the car. We're going to pat you down, which I was very surprised. I couldn't understand why they were going to do that, except that I'm a licensed gun owner, and I thought maybe they ran my plate and they were just taking precautions. So finally, when I got out of the car and they patted me down, they said, well, a call came in that you were outside the car waving a gun around. And that's what the 911 call was. So when they got there, the first thing they wanted to do was to neutralize the threat that they believed there was at the incident scene.
So that was humiliating for you, apparently.
Oh, absolutely. I'd never been patted down or ordered out of the vehicle. And the officers there in Lawrence were not, they were not unpleasant. They were not hollering things at me or anything. So that part of it, I talked to Chief Hoffman about.
Were you in total compliance?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And out of that, I've coined the phrase "comply now, complain later," which there's some debate about that, but you know that could save your life. And subsequently, after meeting with Chief Hoffman and listening to the 911 calls, I found out that the woman and her husband were the ones that made the call. So the 911 call that came in first was the woman who said that I was out there and giving her some grief and she was concerned. And then the husband called right after and said there's a black guy in a car here and he pulled a gun on the workers and he's threatening
To
them.
diffuse the fact that you would tell the police that she said if she had a gun, she would shoot you.
Yeah, and you know, incidentally, that was his wife.
Yeah.
So all of it was recorded on the body cameras, which I think is another reason why we need body cameras, because there was a lot of revelation there. And subsequently, I wanted to find out if there was a law in Indiana for false reporting, and there is. It's a Class B misdemeanor. And so far, Dr. Moore, I've been told by Lawrence Police Department is that there's not enough evidence for prosecution because of their interview with the man who actually made the false report. He said that he was only passing along information. However, I disagree because after listening to the 911 call, it sounded like he saw it. He sounded like a man who
Had been there.
was there, he saw the gun, and that I had pulled it and I was threatening people. And I think this is the kind of failure on the part of our justice system when it comes to things like this, and it continues to happen because we don't hold people accountable.
Yeah.
You know, a false report is a false report.
Yeah. No matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
I think in many cases when we look at false reporting, there's always that element that people try to justify it. It's going to always be that element until it's proven wrong or never gets what it deserves in the process.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't experience any difficulty getting shot or anything.
And that happens all over the country.
Or force, that undue force to the situation. I'm glad you came out okay.
Yeah, to God be the glory. And I was angry that the gentleman or the man that they interviewed, Lawrence Police Department, said I was belligerent. And obviously he doesn't understand the definition of the word belligerent, because it would mean that I was hostile towards his wife. But what
his wife was hostile toward you.
And that's on the body cameras.
Yeah.
Even when the police arrived, she continued to be hostile towards me. It's not a matter of who's right, it's what's right.
Yeah.
And in that instance, what would have been right would have been to have charged him with false reporting. It doesn't carry a severe penalty. I think up to $1,000 fine, and it might have been some.
But it's the principle.
Yeah.
It's the principle behind it, to have a false report given and you to experience that the way you had to experience. And it was just on law enforcement's part, it was believable almost. It was believable. And you had to go the extra mile to make sure that the chief understood where you were. And he did agree possibly that it was false reporting, but he didn't see enough evidence to file a charge.
Yeah, and I think in our country and in our state, we've got to listen to what the call. And they took the word of the man, but go back to the 911 call. The 911 call is the evidence, not
what a man says.
Yeah, I interview you, and you say, "Oh no, I was just passing information." Well, no, you made a false report, and we're going to hold you accountable for that.
Right.
That's how I think it should have been looked at.
Yeah. Well.
And too often we don't do it in that way.
Right. Well, we'll be right back after these words. We'll be talking about what the incident that happened at Shortridge High School just a few weeks ago. Welcome back. This is Pastor Wayne Moore, Real People, Real Voices, along with my co-host, James Jackson. A lot of things going on in the city. Just a few weeks ago, we had an incident at Shortridge High School that has really kind of disturbed some people in the community.
That's captured on video.
Captured on video, went viral in many instances, and it was just a misuse of force to me. But I've heard a lot of reports about what happened inside before what happened on the outside. What do you think about it? What have you?
You know, I watched the video, and having served on the merit board for the police department for 4 years.
Stick a pin in that, James. Having served on the merit board for 4 years, if, hypothetically, that case came before the merit board, which it will probably never get to the merit board.
It will.
It will? You think so?
Well, yeah.
Seeing what you saw, and I know you know the process of the merit board, what do you think the merit board would say?
Well, it'll get there if the chief
pushes it.
If the chief recommends termination.
Okay.
If the chief of police
after the in-house investigation.
Yeah. If the investigation in-house, internal affairs determines that it was improper use of force.
That's why we're doing this, so the community
they may
can know.
terminate him.
Right.
And so then the chief, they may be right along with that to say he needs to be terminated. But if the chief recommends termination and the mayor, the FOP may say, well, we don't think that what he did rises to the level of termination. And he would go.
Now, do you, hypothetically speaking, do you think an officer slapping a young man in the face like that, however it occurred, and you have all of these police action shootings and nobody has been fired behind that, do you think that he's going to get fired or be recommended to be fired for hitting an Afro-American brother, young brother who was probably no more than 17 years old in the face?
He very well could be, because each case has its details,
okay.
and all those facts are going to be presented, if it comes to that, to the merit board. And a lot of times the public doesn't get to see all the different things that led up to it.
And that's why I'm asking you today to make that plain to the public, because we don't know all the ins and outs of what takes place, and it's phenomenal to have people who've been in those particular places to see what can basically happen in this particular situation, because a lot of people are where I'm at, demanding that this officer be fired.
Yeah, well, again, internal affairs is going to look at that. The chief may recommend a termination. I think right now they're trying to see if there are any, if he can be charged just for a crime. Mm-hmm. Then he would go to court, mm-hmm. and then the courts would decide all of that. Mm-hmm. But internally, the police department could say, well, we're going to terminate him. That's going to be the discipline because of what happened. Now, just looking at the video that I've seen on social media, it looked like that the police officer stopped being a police officer when he hit the young man in the face. It didn't look like the young man was doing anything.
He was in compliance as far as I was concerned.
It's going to depend on that. When they start looking at the facts. Did the young man, he stepped to the officer? All of that will come out. They're going to look at all of that. If you look at when you look at the video, it looked like that he hit the boy in the face, and in my opinion, he stopped being a police officer when he hit that young man. He became to me, he was operating as an adult man and striking that young man in the face. It looked like to me the young man was just trying to protect his mother.
And
So
he did not have any indication of what it was to de-escalate anything. I've always thought that, and many officers that I know who I have conversation with, they do believe strongly in de-escalation. But this didn't take place, and maybe they need to rehearse that again in the academy.
well, for what we saw in the video, and that's the thing, Dr. Moore, when they're looking at all of that, they're looking at it before the camera started rolling. And did the officers try to de-escalate it before the record button was pushed? And what was the conversation between the young man, his family, and the police officers? And that's the part.
We saw some of that.
We saw some of it.
Yeah, we saw some of that. But,
Yeah.
and I will say this, and I understand because you sat on that board. We saw some of it, and I think I saw enough of it to say that the young man did not deserve that.
From what I saw, I'd agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree with
No
you.
matter, he didn't deserve that. And
From what I saw, I would agree with you. And there too, we haven't seen all of it.
we haven't seen all of it yet. And being in the situation that a lot of people are in, maybe how would have taken place if the shoes were reversed? If it was reversed, if it was a black officer hitting a white kid, how would that look? So, or vice versa. And those are the kind of things you have to look at, in the city of Indianapolis. Is this stuff balanced, or is it just being escalated to at one level in one ethnic group or another ethnic group? And so I'm basically saying we need policemen in Indianapolis. I don't think people don't want police. I think they're more fearful of police officers. And I think we need to create a level of more serious engagement. I don't think the engagement with community is as authentic as it could be.
And I think it's another reason why we need body-worn cameras.
And another thing we need is we don't need IMPD policing our school children. I think we need the Indianapolis Public School Police Department.
And they have a police force.
Very few.
I thought.
They did a massive cut on it, but they need to find dollars to bring that back, because our schools are, because at one time you had officers that would walk the hallways. Now guns are in the school. People are getting stopped at the door, bringing in guns. And so I think they need to start recruiting and put the police department, IMPD police, not IMPD, but IPS police security back in place. Not at alarming numbers, but it needs to be in place. I don't think IMPD should be policing IPS students when we've already had that mechanism in place and was depleted because of budgetary efforts. So that's how I feel about it. I think this new superintendent, if she's really wants to validate her statement, she would start working with that.
She's got her work cut out for her.
Got her work cut out for her.
And this is a challenge, so close to the front of her administration.
That it's going to be devastating if she doesn't handle it the right way.
Yeah.
I think it will be. But hint to the wise should be sufficient. Get those IS
School police.
School police back in place.
Yeah.
Get them back in place.
We'll be talking to you about a little more in the rundown. Stay with us. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm Curtis Baker, Marketing Director of Real People, Real Voices.
And you've been in our live studio audience, as it were,
Yes.
listening to what we were talking about and the false reporting, your perspective.
Well, it's really amazing because I was actually on social media when it happened to you. We were when you have a lot of followers and you reported it, what was going on. And I got to tell you, I was quite angry. I was disappointed, and I was afraid. You know, because if something like that could happen to you and people who don't know you, I mean, you're a mild-mannered type of person. Your personality, you don't get ruffled, you don't come across as someone who's confrontational. And for that to happen to you, I can only imagine what it would have been if it was someone else in that position. And you know, and the ironic thing was, Chief Hoffman, is it Hoffman or Hoffman? He was just on a show that month prior to that, and we were talking about body cams and all that, and it was just amazing that, you know, again, you're a chaplain, you know, if something like that could happen to you. Joe, you're a pastor of church right up the street, and I know you were a little bit more reserved today about talking about what exactly happened, but I think when we were following on social media, I mean, didn't a lot of police presence show up for that? Was it several cars?
Probably about 4 or 5 officers.
And for what exactly? And if you had made the wrong move, like Dr. King would say, if you would have sneezed, just sneezed, you know, or hand gesture, you know, they already came with the premise that you had a gun, a weapon, you know, and we call that barbecue Becky, you know, apartment Patties, people who call false reporting, and there's something that's really got to be done about that, because that's a life that's been played with.
And as I said to Dr. Moore, after they interview the man who made the call that got the majority of the police officers out there, when you listen to that 911 call, the perception is he saw it, and that he was reporting on his own visual of what happened, and not even his wife. He said the other 2 traffic guards are the ones who told him. Now, they were not even close to the scene.
Right.
And they didn't see anything.
Right.
So how could they tell you anything? And then the investigation stopped right there. I think you got to go back to the 911 call and analyze it and listen to it. And I listened to it. There was another pastor there who listened to it, and we got the impression that this man saw a gun and said, I pulled the gun, I heard it, and that I was threatening his workers. And then, of course, he gives a different version.
Now, where was your gun?
At home.
So he saw it at home.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it's amazing.
If I had had it on me, I just wonder how things would have turned out.
Well, it probably would have not turned out so great. And in the area that you were at, I guess in the past 2 months, there's been police action shootings.
There's been a lot going on.
A lot going on in that area. And, you know, it's just like, by the grace of God, you know, we're so glad that everything came out okay and you're safe, you know, because I didn't want to have to be sitting in your chair doing your show.
Yeah. Well, thank God for that.
That's another show.
And we'll see you for that show. God bless you.